On the day the Godfather was laid to rest, the streets told the story of his legacy. Convoys of black Cadillacs stretched for miles, the hum of their engines a low dirge for the fallen king. High-level men in dark suits, their faces unreadable, along with people from all walks of life, had traveled from all corners to pay their respects. Some were weeping, others murmured in hushed tones. Deals were being made, alliances reaffirmed. The old order had ended, but business had to go on. Michael, heeding his father's prediction, if you will, had no time to be grieving. He was observing. Every handshake, every sidelong glance, every whispered word, nothing escaped him. As the traitor would soon be revealing himself.
You know how they're gonna come at you?
So, Barzini will move against you first.
Mike, can I have a minute?
He'll set up a meeting with someone that you absolutely trust.
Barzini wants to arrange a meeting. He says we can straighten any of our problems out.
Guaranteeing your safety.
I can arrange security. On my territory.
And at that meeting, you'll be assassinated.
But who? Could it be a newcomer, someone like Neri or Rocco? They had proven themselves useful, but could they be trusted? Would it be Clemenza? He was clearly uncomfortable. After all, Paulie, the first traitor, had been his protege. Or could it be loyal Tessio? Tessio had been with the family since the beginning, the one everyone trusted. Well, I'm sure you remember who it was.
Mike, can I have a minute?
The meeting would be held in Tessio's territory. A routine arrangement, they said. Michael would accompany his loyal capo essentially to the slaughterhouse. But Michael flipped the script. He played the ultimate Uno reverse card. Already dismissed as a clueless kid in over his head, they never imagined he'd use their own strategy against them. What were the chances that he would be the one waiting for them? Michael used his enemy's own conniving plot against them, turning their scheme into a masterful deception. The meeting wasn't an ambush for Michael. It was the final checkmate. Michael was going to fall on them like a thunderbolt, swift, merciless, and utterly devastating. They wouldn't see it coming until it was far too late. In The Art of War, Sun Tzu states, "Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as the night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt." January 1944, London, Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force. The room was dimly lit, the only light coming from the hanging lamps swaying gently above the massive table covered in maps. Around it sat some of the sharpest minds in military deception, British intelligence officers, American strategists, and a handful of men who had spent their lives mastering the art of war. At the head of the table stood General Frederick E. Morgan, the chief architect of the invasion, and the man who would sell the greatest lie of the war. He tapped the map with a gloved finger. "If we're able to land in Normandy, gentlemen, then we must convince the Germans it will be anywhere but there." A murmur spread through the room. The German high command, particularly Hitler, was obsessed with the Pas-de-Calais, the narrowest point between England and France. If they could be led to believe the main invasion was coming there, then Normandy would be left undermanned and vulnerable. Morgan let the moment settle before he continued. "Operation Fortitude must be airtight. We must make the Germans see ghosts, hear whispers, and prepare for an attack that will never come. Every piece of evidence must lead them to Calais." The Ghost Army, the 1st U.S. Army Group. General George S. Patton was one of the most feared and respected commanders of the war. The Germans considered him the Allies' best field general, which made him the perfect bait. A fake army, the 1st U.S. Army Group, was created under his command. But deception on this scale required more than just names on paper. The Allies built an entire illusion. Inflatable tanks and vehicles. Along the coast of southeastern England, massive air-filled tanks and wooden artillery pieces were placed in open fields, appearing real to enemy reconnaissance. Fake airfields and landing craft. Wooden planes and fake landing craft were positioned along the coast, suggesting an impending invasion at Calais. phantom radio traffic. Entire networks of radio operators sent scripted, meaningless chatter mimicking the movements of a real army. German intelligence, constantly listening, would pick up the transmissions and assume an invasion force was amassing. Controlled leaks. Double agents, including the infamous Juan Pujol Garcia, Garbo, fed misinformation to the Germans, carefully planting hints that Calais was the target. Everything had to be believable. If the Germans doubted even a fraction of it, the real invasion would be at risk. The double agents, turning the game around. Perhaps the most brilliant aspect of Fortitude was the use of double agents, spies who had been turned by British intelligence. Garbo, Juan Pujol Garcia, a Spanish spy who had convinced the Germans he was their best asset, yet he was feeding them lies crafted by British intelligence. Brutus, Roman Charanovsky, a former Polish officer who the Germans believed was loyal, but who was really playing a double game. These agents carefully dripped out information, never too much at once, never too obvious. The goal was not to make the Germans suspicious, but to let them reach their own conclusions. Every fake division, every false communication, every misleading detail had to feel earned. The final move, D-Day and the success of the lie. For 7 weeks, German reinforcements remained in the north, waiting for an attack that would never come. By the time they realized the truth, the Allies had already secured a foothold in France. Operation Fortitude had worked. The greatest illusion in military history had fooled the Third Reich, turning deception into victory. But even after the war, many German officers would look back wondering how they had been so thoroughly deceived, how an army of ghosts had led them to defeat. I don't know about you, but the footage of the inflatable tanks is hysterical, especially considering the impact they had. Without them, we might all be talking German today. A true strategist never lets the enemy see the truth. You need to infiltrate your enemy's mind, then use misdirection, illusion, and diversion. These are the tools of victory. The battle is won before the first strike, not by brute force, but by shaping reality itself. Michael Corleone understood this deeply. On the day of his father's funeral, while others mourned, Michael was watching. Every handshake, every whispered conversation, every sideways glance, it all revealed the truth. Someone had betrayed him, but who? Rather than openly confronting the problem, Michael let the enemy expose themselves. The meeting with Tessio was a routine arrangement. Tessio believed he was leading Michael into a trap, unaware that the real trap had already been set for him. By the time Tessio realized the truth, it was too late. He had underestimated Michael, assuming him to be weak. But Michael had played the fool, allowing his enemies to think they were in control until the moment he struck. This was deception at its finest, letting the enemy walk themselves into their own execution. History echoes this lesson. Operation Fortitude, one of the greatest military deceptions of all time, fooled Hitler into believing the D-Day invasion would happen at Calais, not Normandy. The Allies built an entire ghost army, inflatable tanks, fake airfields, and scripted radio chatter, all designed to mislead the Germans. By the time Hitler realized the truth, the real invasion had already begun. The Mongols, masters of deception, would pretend to retreat, drawing their enemies into pursuit, only to ambush them the moment they lowered their guard. Again and again their enemies fell, believing victory was within reach, until they were swallowed whole. The lesson is clear. Never fight fair. Control what the enemy sees, make them believe they have the upper hand, and when they act on that belief, crush them completely. Deception naturally comes with a lot of negative connotations. And, of course it does. But where I see a lot of people making a critical mistake is equating deception with outright lying. It's not enough. Look at the extent the Allies went to in Operation Fortitude. They didn't just plant false information, they built an entire fake invasion force, complete with inflatable tanks, fake landing craft, controlled leaks, and double agents feeding misinformation. The Germans weren't simply misled, they were completely convinced the invasion would happen at Pas du Calais. By the time they realized the truth, it was too late. The deception must be so carefully crafted that your opponent genuinely believes the idea was their own. Michael Corleone played the same game. He never directly confronted his enemies until the moment he was ready to destroy them. Instead, he let them believe they were winning, letting them walk into their own traps. Tessio didn't just suspect Michael was weak, he believed it as an undeniable fact. That's what made the betrayal so easy for him. But the truth? Michael had been watching all along, waiting for Tessio to show his hand. The best deception is invisible. It's not about forcing people to believe something. It's about guiding them so subtly that they never realize they were guided at all. A well-crafted deception is so smooth, so well-placed that the target never questions it. They think it was their idea all along. That's how you control the game. How to master the art of war. The 13 Laws of Victory is the version of Sun Tzu you've been waiting for. It doesn't just explain the old ideas, it shows you exactly how to use them in real life. Each of the 13 laws gives you simple, clear steps to apply ancient war strategies right now. No fluff, no confusion, just straight-up advice you can use to think sharper, move smarter, and stay ahead of the game. It bridges the gap between knowing and doing, giving you the exact mental models, tools, and strategic moves to dominate your battlefield, whatever that may be. If the original felt too vague or hard to apply, this book finally makes it clear, practical, and powerful. Learn how you can win the game and be so far ahead of your competition you won't even be playing the same game.